Picks fans, this is a fight for you, and it's going to be a Rubik's Cube to solve the fight booking, so let me start right here. We're gonna start on the ground floor. What was originally supposed to be Bruno Silva against Albert Duraev, then turned into Albert Duraev versus Michal Oleksiejczuk, and what was originally supposed to be Cody Brundage against one Rodolfo Vieira, well, they shelved that because Vieira was out. Brundage needs a dance partner. Oleksiejczuk needs a dance partner, so on December the 2nd, ESPN announced Brundage is going to fight Oleksiejczuk, which is a really fun fight with a couple of guys that have been in camp for a very long time. You expect both guys to be fresh. You expect both guys to make the weight, which might sound halfway surprising because for Oleksiejczuk, longtime light heavyweight, made that middleweight debut his last time out. He's 5-3 in the UFC with a no contest. The no contest, a little bit of a USADA suspension. It was not for the sticky icky. He did beat Khalil Roundtree Jr. in his UFC debut, but for Oleksiejczuk, we thought the highs could be very high. And then we saw the lows could be very low. And his last fight at light heavyweight, his second to last fight, he lost to Dustin Jacoby by decision. But in that middleweight debut, he looked really good and he finished the fight very quickly. So for Oleksiejczuk, the power carried to 185, the size was there, the speed was there, a lot of things that he did have at light heavyweight. And for Oleksiejczuk, trains out of a great gym in Ankos MMA. That's a gym that you're going to see Marcin Tybura. You've seen Yaroslav Amosov train there recently. You've also seen the FEN welterweight champ, his brother, I'm going to butcher his first name, but I'm going to give it a shot, Sergey Oleksiejczuk. He is a champ. So for Oleksiejczuk, great guys to train with to get ready for a fight like this. You know how deadly that corked up left hand is. And for Brundage, a lot of people weren't sure coming into the UFC. He looked really good against William Knight until he got finished on Dana White's Contender Series. He had that fight against Nick Maximov. Some people thought he won, some people didn't. And then he was able to go out there his last two times. He finishes Dalcho Lungiambula, where he was getting his just brains beat in until he wasn't, where he finished him by guillotine. And his last time out against Tresean Gore, withstood the thunder. Everybody thought he was going to wrestle, and he knocked him out on the feet. Well, he dropped him, and then he finished him with ground and pound. Brundage, in his own right, has looked great his last two times out, too.
Remember when Big Pretty went from fighting Mark Hunt to Curtis Blades? And that was like a huge step up in competition, like an insane step up in competition. Cody Brundage going from Tresean Gore to Michal Oleksiejczuk at 185, I think is a big step up in competition. And you don't need me to tell you that. Like, Cody Brundage had a lot of success against a guy who had a lot of question marks. And while, yes, Oleksiejczuk is a guy who still has question marks surrounding his takedown defense, potentially his gas tank as well, he is still a fairly complete product, I would say. You still know what you're going to get. I know we saw a lot more of his offensive wrestling in the Khalil Roundtree fight. A lot of people forget, like, he wrestled Khalil into oblivion in that matchup. He really did use his offensive wrestling a lot, but the thing about Oleksiejczuk is we've seen him struggle defensively in some of those same positions at the UFC level. And so yes, could Cody Brundage go out there, really implement his wrestling background on a guy like Oleksiejczuk? I think he could, but the issue that I keep on going back to is Cody Brundage eats a lot of punches, and he has eaten quite a few shots in a lot of his matchups. Now, yes, did Nick Maximov rock him? No. But has Nick Maximov rocked anybody in the UFC? Exactly. I just worry about how Cody Brundage is going to deal with some of the power strikes of Oleksiejczuk, because can Brundage get a lot of control time on the mat? Can he threaten with some submissions? I think he can. I just think it's going to be really hard for Cody Brundage to have a lot of the answer for the boxing on the outside of Oleksiejczuk.
Yeah, and for Oleksiejczuk, you got to consider this. He was a minus 600 and he beat Sam Alvey last time out. So you got to kind of consider that when you factor it in with a matchup against Brundage. And for Oleksiejczuk, again, the same thing could be said. He was originally due Albert Duraev, who actually fits into this category pretty well because he has underwhelmed so far in his UFC tenure with one win over Roman Kopylov and a couple of losses since then, and his eye always blows up. But for Oleksiejczuk, for all that offensive wrestling prowess, I mean, that was my big counter when he's taking on Shamil Gamzatov. What's Shamil do? Well, he's not a good striker, but he's really, really good at getting the fight down to the mat. And in that fight, Michael just pushed a pace. Shamil thought he was a power striker, and Michael was able to go out there and finish him and take that O. So in a matchup like this, you kind of touched on it. Brundage does have a wrestling background at Newbury College, and I'll throw the graphic up there now. At 197 and 287 pounds. His favorite movie in the bio was Good Will Hunting. What do you make of that movie?
Never watched it. I'm a big Ben Affleck fan, though.
You can't be if you've never watched that movie.
Yes, you can be, Craig.
And you've never seen The Big Lebowski. What movies are you watching?
I've seen The Town. I've seen Argo. I've seen a lot of Ben Affleck movies, Craig.
Have you seen Geely?
I've not seen Geely.
You're not a big Ben Affleck.
You really try to force some of these.
But if you look at it for Brundage, I mean, his favorite saying back in college was BIP. What do you think that is? Bad in person? You think it's bustin' pocket?
What is it?
I don't know. It's left open to interpretation. BIP.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments what you make of that one. But in this matchup, Matt, Brundage obviously has a skill advantage over Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk has a skill advantage over Brundage. When we look at the odds, Oleksiejczuk open minus 225. He's minus 275 right now. For Brundage, open plus 190, plus 222. We have a look at the Tapology votes. I doubt they're close, but the same thing can be said in Brundage's last 2 fights. I'm going to say over under 75% Oleksiejczuk.
I think they'll be over.
My goodness, I hope I'm halfway right on this one. Okay, they're slightly over. Look at that. Okay, 490 total votes, 81% Oleksiejczuk, 81% by knockout. For the 19% that have Brundage, 36% by decision, 34% by submission, 23% by knockout. I don't know if those add up to 100%. They really do on Tapology. But Matt, the fans have Oleksiejczuk. He's a favorite in this one. You've been a big Oleksiejczuk supporter. Do you think he gets the win here?
I have been, and I can admit when I think a guy is probably better than they are. But with Oleksiejczuk, I feel like I have had pretty realistic expectations of what his skill sets are. I've never said he's a great offensive wrestler. I've never said he really excels with the grappling. He'll threaten with defensive submissions every now and then. There you go. But again, it's not such a big part of his game that you really need to mention it. I like his offensive boxing a lot in this matchup, though. The problem with Cody Brundage is, does he have great wrestling? Yes, he does. And I think it's something he can use to his success in this matchup. But he's not a big finisher with submissions. He has good ground and pound, but I don't think it's good enough ground and pound to finish a guy like Oleksiejczuk. And I think if that's the case, if he gets damaged on the feet, what is he going to do to really get the judges back in his favor? And I think Oleksiejczuk is that kind of damaging striker. We bring it a lot up. We brought it up between Dalch's last matchup, and every time we've talked about Cody Brundage since that fight. He went through a lot to get that win, and he ate some really big power shots from a very talented striker on the outside. But the difference between Dalcha and Oleksiejczuk is Oleksiejczuk's a much more, I would say, compact striker. He'll go to the body more. He's a little bit more disciplined when he goes for the finish. And I think if he gets Brundage hurt, he'll put him away and not just try to wing power shots on the outside.
Oleksiejczuk loves to paw that lead right hand to the body, then come up with that the left straight that he does have. And there's a lot of power behind it for such a straight shot. And for Brundage, I picked him in all 3 UFC fights, and I'm 2-1 so far, but I'm not picking him in this matchup. I'm off the train just for this one. So sorry to the Factory X fans, but for me, I'm gonna go with Michal Oleksiejczuk. I think that boxing advantage that he has, I also think he has a speed advantage in this matchup.
That's a good point.
He's great with lead foot placement, but if he leaves it out there too much, which he will do in a lot of his fights, Brundage can capitalize on that into a single leg. So a very, very interesting fight. Both of us going with Poland's Hussar, the light cavalry from way back when. Michal Oleksiejczuk to get the win. Some big time fights on this card, including a headliner in this division between Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.